pretty bad at Steve.
Alright, are we starting yet?
Whenever you're ready.
Alright. You're driving down the road, got your radio cranked up, and you're blasting one of your favorite songs. Suddenly, the music cuts out, and you realize that someone ripped a chunk out of your song, leaving an empty void where sweet music used to be. No, your radio is not on the fritz. Someone decided that a word in your song was inappropriate, and censored it. Censorship, it's one of those topics where everyone has their own opinion. But sometimes people think very strongly on the subject, and they can be blinded to the facts, disregarding logic because they are just so sure that they are right. And you won't find many people on this topic that simply don't give a damn. Censorship covers a range of things, including books, television, radio, and even what you say just out in public. Advocates against censorship will argue that it impedes on free speech, and advocates for censorship favor the argument of if someone were to yell something like fire or bomb in a crowded place, it will cause mass panic and people are going to get hurt. That's the one they love to use the most. However, the censorship that bugs me the most is on TV and the radio. All those bleeps and blurs just don't seem necessary to me. Now, when it comes to broadcasting, the arguments get a little bit different. The argument generally for it is, well, what about the children? They shouldn't be exposed to these things. And I don't really think this holds up very well, because you have children channels for children already. You have the more inappropriate material placed at a later time when they're in bed. And cable companies like Comcast already include parental controls for you to place. In one of my books that I checked out from the library on opposing viewpoints, a guy named Adam Thier wrote a section on the subject, and he said, even if lawmakers have the best intentions of children in mind, I take great offense to the notion that government officials must do this job for them and every other American family. Censorship on an individual/parent level is a fundamental part of being a good parent. But censorship at a government level is an entirely different matter, because it means that a handful of people get to decide what the whole nation can see, hear, or think. I agree with this statement entirely. If a parent doesn't think that their child should be exposed to something, then it is their job to do so. Calling in the government to do that for them is essentially being a lazy parent. Now, with all these things considered, the child argument doesn't seem like it holds up very well. Almost invalid, if you will. So I thought, well, there has to be a different argument. So I read all 5 of the books I checked out, and I went on the internet, and I looked up arguments there too, and I was only able to find one more argument for censorship in broadcasting. And in my opinion, this argument is even more invalid. You know what it is? Simply, I don't like it, so other people shouldn't see it. That's it. I find this to be completely ridiculous. Ludicrous even, that people can think that they have the right to say what everyone else should and shouldn't expose themselves to. One of the books that I read shared a little story about Al Gore's wife, Tipper Gore. The story was, one day, she went home, and she listened to a rap album that her daughter had purchased. And I'm sure you all are probably aware that rap music is notorious for having lyrics about things like fucking bitches. Now, Tipper, when she heard the language and content of the lyrics, she was shocked. Obviously, she doesn't get out much. And she marched herself to Congress, and she started a pro-censorship campaign. Now, not wanting to expose your kids to certain things is fine, but when you start running around with the audacity to tell someone else that they shouldn't listen to it either, you're going too far. It's too far. Especially if you're just limiting simple words like fuck. I mean, it's one word. Come on. I'm not saying that you have no right to do this just because I think so. I'm saying you don't have the right to do this because the Constitution says so. And I quote, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or press. Now, all I'm talking about restricting free speech, any of you that love the fire bomb argument, the whole deal there, stop. Because I really don't think that applies here. Because when it comes to radio and television, most people, they're by themselves, in their house, maybe a couple people are with them, and most people already know not to believe everything you hear on TV and the radio. So I really don't think the same idea can apply here to a public place. Also, that reasoning doesn't really apply to crude or offensive materials. It's not the same thing. Yelling fire in a crowded place, I don't think it can be used here. So, censorship is a broad topic. It covers anything any person can hear, say, see, or even read. But when it comes to broadcasting, I don't believe it's very necessary. The arguments against it are few and weak, and I find it to be far more of an annoyance than a good thing. So, if you care about your rights and your freedoms, fuck censorship.